Hello and welcome everyone to the Polity Primer series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pragya and today we are going to discuss a very important organization in India. The title of our today's discussion is Enforcement Directorate or the ED. In this discussion, we will be studying about what is ED. We are also going to see the genesis of or origin of ED. We are also going to see the structure of ED and the recent issue that is related to the term of the ED director. And we are also going to see some of the way forwards in which this organization can be made even more efficient. And in the end, we are going to see a practice question for your prelims examination and a practice question for your mains examination. So if I talk about the background of our today's topic, ED as an organization is responsible for handling many high profile cases, such as the case of Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, etc. And recently also, it is dealing with a very high profile case known as the Delhi liquor case. So what is this ED? What is this organization all about? Let us examine. So if I talk about ED, it is one of the premier financial institutions in India. It is a financial watchdog of India which helps in maintaining the financial sovereignty of India. It prevents all of the financial offences that are taking place against India. And if I talk about ED as an organization, it is a law enforcement agency of the government of India. So basically, it is also a law enforcement agency like the CBI, there is NIA, there are premier agencies. So it is the premier law enforcement agency apart from being a financial watchdog. It functions under the Department of Revenue, under the Ministry of Finance, and as the premier financial agency in India, it ensures that the laws of India, the provisions of Constitution of India are strictly complied with. So how did ED came into existence? What is the genesis of ED? Let us examine. So if I talk about the genesis of ED, let me take you back to the year 1956. In 1956, so we had this enforcement unit, and it was formed in the Department of Economic Affairs. Its main function was to handle exchange control laws violation under the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act or the FERA Act of 1947. So money laundering is not a problem today. It was a problem even when we got independence, and that's why we had the FERA Act of 1947, and this economic unit was a premier agency at that time, and it had a main branch in New Delhi and it was headed by a legal service officer. Kindly note this, currently it is not headed by a legal service officer. It is being headed by senior bureaucrats such as the IARS, IPS and IAS officer. But in those times, economic unit was headed by a legal services officer as the director of enforcement. And it had two branches, sub-branches apart from Delhi at Bombay and in Calcutta. So what happened in 1957? In 1957, this economic unit was renamed as the Enforcement Directorate, and another branch was opened at Madras, which is now known as Chennai. And the administrative control was also shifted in 1960 from the Department of Economic Affairs to the current Department of Revenue. And with the passage of time, FERA Act was also repealed, 1947 Act was also repealed, and the new FERA Act of 1973 came into force and ED became even more powerful. And what happened after this was we had to follow the international anti-money laundering regime, because India was a signatory to anti-money laundering regimes, and that is why we enacted the Prevention of Money Laundering Act in 2002. And this Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002 widened the scope of ED, widened the powers given to the Enforcement Directorate, and it became even more powerful. So currently, if I talk about ED, it derives its statutory powers from three different acts. So the first is the Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999, also known as the very famous FEMA Act, or the second is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002. That is the PMLA. Then the third, another important act is the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act of 2018, under which an individual is declared as a fugitive economic offender such as Nirav Modi is declared as a economic offender under this act. So the ED derives its power from these three different types of statute. Now let us understand what is the structure of ED. So if I talk about the structure of ED, it is headed by the Director of Enforcement, and he sees the main branch located in New Delhi. Then there is special directors of enforcement who see the other branches like in various other cities such as Mumbai, Chennai, etc. And these branches are foreseen by these special directors of enforcement. Then comes in hierarchy the deputy director who is tasked with seeing the zonal offices of ED. Then there are assistant directors who see the sub-zonal offices of ED. So the hierarchy is very clear. We have the main director and sub-directors under the main directors. The main directors is responsible for foreseeing the main branch located in New Delhi. Now, if you ask me, ma'am, what is the functions of ED? Why is this a very important organization? So, the first function is that ED is mainly responsible for preventing any kind of anti-money laundering activities. So, who will see if there is money laundering happening from India? The ED will conduct raids, and it does not require the permission of government to conduct raids. It can act on suo motu. It can act suo motu and can conduct searches, raids, etc. So ED is very powerful in this regard in preventing any violation of the Money Laundering Act. Then there are other high-profile cases which the ED also sees, and it is the main financial organization in India. And it helps in maintaining the financial security and sovereignty and unity and integrity of India. So, with this, now let us discuss the recent issue about the term of ED director. Let us understand that what is happening and what is the recent Supreme Court judgment about this issue. So, if I talk about the issue regarding the term of ED director, so let us first understand that what is the ordinary term of the ED director. So, the ordinary term of a ED director is 2 years. But the central government can provide him 3 extensions. So, the central government has recently amended the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act and the CVC Act of 2003. And this amendment acts give the central government power to extend the tenure of ED director for 3 more times. So, the total tenure becomes 5 years. Sorry. Two years plus 3 extensions that can be given by the central government. The ED director is appointed under section 25 of the CVC Act of 2003. And the central government appoints the director of ED on the recommendation of a special committee. So, if you ask me the composition of this special committee that is recommending the appointment of ED director, it consists of the chairperson of the Central Vigilance Commission. Then there are other vigilance commissioners as well. Vigilance commissioner. Okay, so there is this chairperson of CVC, other vigilance commissioners. Then there are secretaries to Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Personnel, and the Ministry of Home Affairs. Ministry of Home Affairs. So this is the composition of this selection committee. 2 years and 5 years. Which is, this is the basic composition of the selection committee, which is responsible for appointing the director of the ED. And the ED director is appointed on the recommendations of this selection committee. Now, if you ask me what has happened, what is the issue? So, as I was discussing this before also, that the central government has amended the CVC Act and the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946 to grant itself powers to extend the ED tenure of ED director for 3 more terms. And the current or the ex-ED director was appointed in the November 2008 for a period of 2 years. In November 2020, his tenure was extended to 3 years, which was subsequently challenged through a petition in the Supreme Court. So what is happening is they appointed him in 2 years. His term ended in 2020. So 2018 he was appointed and his term ended in 2020 and he was given a further extension, which was challenged by an NGO in the Supreme Court that this is not valid in law. You cannot allow this. So the Supreme Court in its judgment on September 8, 2021, the Supreme Court dismissed the petition but issued a specific mandamus. So what is a mandamus? It is a writ granted by Supreme Court under Article 32 of our Indian Constitution, and mandamus means we command. The writ means we command. And what was this mandamus about? The Supreme Court said that no, you cannot go on indefinitely extending the tenure of ED director. So there was a clear-cut direction to the central government that no indefinite tenure extensions will be provided to the ED director. But what happened after this was the central government kept on increasing his tenure, and the Parliament brought 2 legislations and to replace the ordinances promulgated in November 2021. So September 2021, the Supreme Court judgment came, and as usual, whenever there is a conflict between a Supreme Court judgment and the Parliament, and the judgment comes averse to the Parliament enacts a law. So this is what happened in this case also. An ordinance was promulgated by the President of India, and this ordinance gave the Parliament to extend the tenure of ED director. Then again, ordinance to become law has to be placed in the either house of the Parliament within 6 months. So 2 new acts were enacted by the Parliament of India, known as the CVC Amendment Act of 2021 and the DPSE or the Delhi Police Special Establishment Act of 2021. And these gave immense power in the hand of the central government to enable the extension of tenure of the directors of not only the ED but also CBI. So that these chiefs of ED and CBI, the tenure could be now enhanced by the central government by enactment of these 2 acts. The amended law allowed the extension of service of ED and CBI chiefs, as I am explaining to you, that it allowed a power in the hands of the central government to enhance the tenure of the CBI chiefs and the ED chiefs. So what happened after this was they again enhanced his tenure, the ex-ED director's tenure, and his tenure, and again this issue came before the Supreme Court of India through this petition that even by enacting a law they cannot do so. This is invalid. This is against the provisions. So the Supreme Court in a recent case has held that these indefinite extensions granted to the ex-ED director was unconstitutional and invalid in law. So the Supreme Court said that you cannot go on in violation of our 2021 judgment, and you cannot grant an indefinite tenure extension to the CBI and the ED chiefs. So this was all about the recent controversy regarding the tenure of the term of the ED director. Now let us understand what can be some of the way forwards. How can ED maintain its prestige and function more efficiently? So some of the way forwards can be reduce misuse of power. ED not only sees the money laundering activities these days, but it is also engaged in regular, enforcement of laws, which is gross misuse of power by the ED. ED cannot go on arresting people in a routine manner. So misuse of power by the enforcement director should be looked upon by the government. Then there is increase of transparency. ED cannot be used as a puppet in the hands of the ruling party. There has to be a transparency made in the arrest by the ED, and ED cannot go on arresting people in a routine manner as if it is a normal law enforcement agency. So we were discussing that the main aim was under the PMLA Act or the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. This act gave ED the powers to only see the anti-money laundering activities that are going on in India, and to prevent the violation of the Money Laundering Act. But ED now behaves as if it is a normal law enforcement agency, which should not happen. There should be an increased transparency of the arrests that are made by the ED. Then do not use ED like a political puppet. This is what I was explaining to you before also, that ED should not be used like a puppet in the hands of the ruling party, and it cannot go running behind those the leaders of the opposition. It should have substance, and it should have prima facie case against them to go and arrest them. It cannot just continue to harass the members of the opposition parties. Then investigation should not become punishments, and cases should be resolved quickly to ensure speedy trials and conviction. So if you look at the history of the cases that has happened after the enactment of this PMLA Act of 2023, you will see that there is a very low conviction rate. You will see that the ED keeps on extending the custody of persons. You will see that the ED is not following a very speedy process, and the investigation is not carried out in a speedy process. In India, we have a right to speedy justice, but this is not followed in every case, especially by the cases that are handled by the ED. So we must ensure that the right to speedy justice must be followed. The investigation should happen in time, and the ED should increase its conviction rate rather than, harassing persons and, arresting them without any logic. So all of this can be the way forward in which ED's transparency can be increased, and for the last way forward can be ED should be made as an independent agency. It should be free from all political biases. There should be legislative, executive and judicial action in this regard, or the judgments of Supreme Court should be paid heed to. That ED should be functioning as an independent agency, irrespective of the ruling party. Whatever ruling party is there in the government, ED should function as an independent agency, irrespective of the interference by the ruling party or any kind of political bias. So this is very important to maintain its prestige, as well as to ensure that it is working in an efficient manner. So this was all about the way forward that can be taken to increase the position of ED as a financial watchdog in India. With this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen what is the Enforcement Directorate. We have also seen how Enforcement Directorate came into being. We have also analyzed the structure of Enforcement Directorate, or the ED. We have also seen that what is the ongoing recent issue with the tenure of the ED director, and we have also seen what can be done to increase the efficiency and the prestige of ED. And ED should be made as an independent organization by taking executive, legislative or actions or by following whatever the Supreme Court has reiterated in its judgment. So now let us see a practice question for your prelims examination. Consider the following statements. Your statement number 1 is ED functions under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Your statement number 2 is the cases related to the money laundering are investigated by the Enforcement Directorate. Which of the following statements given above are correct? Your options are: option A is 1 only, option B is 2 only, option C is both 1 and 2, and option D is neither 1 nor 2. Kindly drop your answers in the comment box below. Now let us analyze the practice question for your mains examination. So the question is, discuss the role of ED in preventing financial offences. So firstly, you will write that ED is a financial watchdog of India. It is a very important agency functioning under the PMLA Act. It foresees that there is no violation or there is no money laundering that is happening in India. Then you will also write the role of ED in prevention of money laundering activities. And then you can conclude that ED is a very important part of the economic ecosystem in India. So you can conclude that to maintain the prestige of ED should be made as an independent investigating agency. So you can conclude by writing all of the points which I have discussed in my discussion today. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any feedback regarding this session, kindly drop it in the comment box below. If you like the today's discussion and found it to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such updates. Thank you.